Hello weirdos, welcome back to my channel. My name is EmmaAbe, and today we're going to be doing a book haul. This is books that I have gathered over like the past 6 months-ish, and there's a lot because I have no self-restraint. So we're going to be doing a lot. There's about 30 plus books in this book haul, so be ready for that. Also, before we get started talking about the books, I did put out a call for questions for a Q&A that I'm going to do to celebrate 200 subscribers, which is really exciting, but also to celebrate the fact that I have graduated university. So if you have any questions about like anything me related, just put them in the comments down below, either in this video. I put up several things on like different social platforms, so really if you send me a question, email me a question, or like put it in the comments of this video, that video, I will answer it in an upcoming video. But let's cut the bullshit. Let's get straight to the books. So the first book is a book that I've actually already read. That would be Mexican Gothic. This is by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I've been on a like Silvia Moreno Garcia kick lately. This is the only one of her books that I've actually read, but I've picked up some of her other books and I'm really excited to like dig into those. Yeah, this is a book that I recently bought on like a book buying journey. I made a video about it. It hasn't come out yet. It will come out soon, I promise. But yeah, this is a horror book where Naomi gets a letter from her cousin who's recently married these like weird, almost cult-like people in the Mexican countryside. So she decides to, go investigate, see what's up with her cousin, and winds up getting herself trapped there. This is a horror book, so if you're not really looking for like horror, I would not recommend this, but I really liked it. I thought it was very intelligent in ways that it didn't need to be, in terms of the references that it made to like anthropology and history and colonization. I thought it was really, really well thought out, and I love the theming in this. It was really, really good, and I would really recommend it. That's why I picked it up. It's kind of why I'm looking for more of her work. So that's this one. The next book is a sequel, and that is the Scum Villain Self-Saving System, Volume 2. So I've read the first volume. I haven't read this volume yet. I am going to be reading it. These follows are two main leads. We have Shen Qingxiu, this dude right here, and we have Luo Binghe. Here's the tea. In the last book, they were separated in a very tragic way. So imagine that in this book, Luo Binghe is going to come back. There's gonna be some drama with how it went down. I don't want to like get into spoiler territory. Let's just say things did not end well between the two of them, and both of them were very upset. We got to see a lot about Shen Qingqiu's like reactions and his grief to losing Luo Binghe. We haven't really gotten to see a lot of Luo Binghe's reactions, but I'm assuming that this book is going to get more into that. So I'm here for all of the like teenage angst and aggression that Luo Binghe is going to bring. I'm super excited. This is one of MXTX's works, or Mo Xiang Tongqiu books. And I love her like Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. And that's how, so I'm just always excited to pick up more of her stuff. So that's this one. The next book is Stony the Road, Reconstruction, White Supremacy, and the Rise of Jim Crow. This is by Henry Louis Gates Jr. And this is talking about the century in between the freeing of the slaves in about 1965 to 1865, oh my god, to like the rise of the civil rights era, which also is like in 1965. So there's about a decade there, and there isn't a lot of like scholarship. I mean, there is a lot of scholarship, but there isn't a lot of like published for public consumption about that specific area in history. I'm gonna be honest, I have neglected it. I have neglected that area of history, but I'm super excited to get this one. I picked this one up from the Harriet Beecher Stowe house, and I picked it up because it was my graduation party, and my mom gave me her credit card, which she should never do. So I bought books. My mom should learn by now to never just give me her credit card and let me buy books, because it will be obnoxious. I didn't go super overboard because I've already like bought a ton of the books from the Harriet Beecher Stowe house, but I did buy quite a few, and there'll be more of those popping up in this book haul, but that's this one. In fact, the next one was another one that I picked up from the Harriet Beecher Stowe house, and that is The Color of the Law, A Forgotten History and How Our Government Segregated America. This is by Richard Rothstein. So I think this is going to be also very interesting because, again, it deals with racism. As as most books from the Harry Beecher Stonehouse do deal with, but this one specifically looks at like redlining and the ways that the government enforced their segregation through like who can live where, how it like put into place white neighborhoods, black neighborhoods, etc., and how like police were involved. So I think this is going to look at more of a structural picture and look at some of the more of those, what we consider now as kind of like inherent biases, but how actual racism led to the forming of certain procedures in the government that we see today. So I think that this one is going to be very fascinating, and I'm very excited to get to this one. So that is The Color of the Law. Next book is a book that I had to get for class. And I didn't do a textbook haul this semester because honestly, I just didn't buy any textbooks. Normally I would, and I would show you guys all the textbooks that I have to get for class, but I had to get like 2 this semester, and one of them you're going to see. And I was just like, how am I going to make a video that's not 30 seconds long? I had to get textbooks for some of my other classes, but I chose to not buy those textbooks because fuck buying textbooks because they're expensive. Anyway, but this one I actually like seemed kind of interested in and would read like independently. So this is for my forensic anthropology class, and that is All That Remains, A Life in Death. This is by Sue Black. Sue Black is a forensic anthropologist, and this is kind of like a science, life, memoir thing. I think it's going to be like in the style of anything by Caitlin Doughty, especially more of her like memoir things like Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. But I also think it's going to be similar to Morgue. So I'm imagining that in this book we're going to learn a lot about forensic anthropology, body, bones, death, but also like how that personally affects the author, Sue Black. But I'm really excited to get to this one. Next is a trilogy that I did not understand that I bought all of the books for. And that's this is the Red Princess. Oh my god, my books are attacking me. But that's the Red Princess Mysteries. So we have the first book, that is The Flower Net by Lisa C. The second book is The Interior. And the third book is Dragon Bones. So these books are all mysteries, follow an interracial, I guess what becomes an interracial relationship between 2 detectives. The female is Chinese and the male is I think American, but that's not super evident from the covers and the synopsis. But basically they have, in the first one, a U.S. ambassador's son is found dead. And so they team up to go all over China trying to figure out what exactly happened to this ambassador's son. So I'm very excited because I didn't know Lisa C. wrote this trilogy literally until after I bought the books. What the fuck's wrong with me? Did I buy these books because Lisa C. wrote them? Yes. Am I ashamed of it? Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. So I'm really excited to see a different genre out of Lisa C. And that would be more mystery, crime writing, true crime. I'm here for it. I'm always here for it. So yeah, that is the Red Princess Mystery series. So the next book is Imperial Woman by Pearl S. Buck. And this tells the story of, what is her name? Su Sai, and she is the last empress of China. It's a fictionalized account. I haven't read any of Pearl S. Buck's writing. I should. I have it. It's on my list. We've got, where is it? We got The Good Earth right here. So we're working on it. I'm planning on reading it. It's a process. Reading books is hard. It takes a long time. But I imagine that I will really like her writing. Okay, now we're going to talk about one that I'm currently reading, but I'm still going to talk about it anyway. Oh my god. Okay. And that is The Veiled Throne by Ken Liu. This is the third book in the Dandelion Dynasty, which is honestly becoming one of my favorite, fantasy, book series ever. Each book is getting better and better, and I'm not that far in. I'm less than 100 pages in as of right now, the filming of this, so I can't really speak to how I feel about this one. And this is a chonkster. It's almost 1,000 pages. Holy crap. The next book in the series is also going to be almost 1,000 pages. But in this book, we're following Princess Thera, who is I don't want to spoil it, but she is the princess of Dara, and Dara has come into contact with this other continent. In fact, the other continent invaded, and the Princess Dara had sacrificed her love life because she's a lesbian / bisexual. We're not really sure, but we definitely know she's attracted to women. She has sacrificed her love life in order to marry this prince of this other land so that she can maintain peace between the two countries. So I'm really excited. I think there's going to be a lot more political intrigue in this. They all have political intrigue. The last one was kind of political intrigue because there was a freaking war going on. I think this is going to be a lot of like maintaining peace and navigating now that these two countries can talk to each other. And I think it's going to be really interesting. And I am super excited to finish and get into this chunkster more. Oh my god. Sometimes that light is just so blinding. But continuing on, we have our next Silvia Moreno Garcia in The Beautiful Ones. So this tells a story about this telekinetic girl. She is trying to find a husband. She's in her debut. When is this like roughly set? It doesn't say. Her powers went getting her in like some trouble and like causing gossip. But she's trying to find a husband, a partner, and she thinks she's found it in this one dude who also wants to mentor her and who also has telekinetic powers. But the things are, how honest is this person really being? So I'm really excited for this one because again, it's Silvia Moreno Garcia. If I know anything about like what she's written, it's gonna be good. It is going to be good, and I'm really excited for this one. The next book is The Terror. This is by Dan Simmons, and this follows the Franklin expedition. And if you do not know anything about the Franklin expedition, well, let me just say, it fucking went south. So the Franklin expedition was an expedition to the North Pole. They were trying to find a passageway through the Arctic. Let's just say a lot of motherfuckers died. Like, nearly all of them, if not all of them. And this technically is a horror, it's fiction, but it draws upon like the actual expedition, which I find really interesting. I know that there's going to be an aspect that I do not like in this, and that is going to be that there is going to be some supernatural monster that is also attacking the crew, which I feel like is unnecessary because the horror of just the isolation and what it is like to be out in the Arctic and have your mind going insane while everyone is dying around you is terrifying enough. But can't win them all. But I'm really excited to get this one. This one is a chunkster. I believe it's like over 700 pages. Now this one does look like it's going to be good, minus that one aspect. Yeah. So next one was recommended to me by my aunts. We were talking about books, and I mentioned that I really like Lisa C. And they were like, hey, maybe you should try this one. And that is The Samurai's Garden. This is by Gail Tsuchiyama. But basically, this young Chinese man has to recover in Japan. And the catch is that this is right before World War II. If you know anything about World War II, Chinese-Japanese relationships, not great, and are going to become even worse given what the Japanese do. So I think this is going to be a really intimate look in like this one person's life, and I'm very excited to dig into it. So that's this one, bought solely upon the recommendation of some of my aunts. Hey, but you know what? There's worse things. All right. The next couple, actually, I got on a book buying journey that, again, you will see soon. And that is Detransition Baby. This is by Tori Peters. This has kind of been on my radar, but with the advent of just like the like queer readathon and like other things happening very soon, I was like, you know what? This is going to be a good choice to pick up. And then when I read the back cover recently, I was like, ooh, this is going to be full of freaking tea. So you have these two people who are in a relationship together. They are both lesbians. One is trans, and one of them decides to detransition. And this person gets someone pregnant. So I think it's going to be very interesting, dramatic look at an intimate picture of like what a family looks like and how being trans factors into all of this, because most of the people in this relationship are trans with the exception of the person who has the actual child. So I'm really excited for this. I think this is going to be lots of drama, and I'm going to be here for it. every single step of the way. But I also think this is going to be very sad because it's like the destruction and rebuilding of a relationship is very central to this story. So that's The Enchantress Baby. Next one is Dial A for Aunties. This is by Jesse Q. Swanto. Again, bought on book buying journey. It was a fun journey. This one, I think, is going to be fucking hilarious because the premise is just hilarious. So this one goes on a blind date. Her blind date dies. The blind date's body winds up in a cooler that's going to be that's being sent to a very prestigious person's wedding, and like, so that in of itself just calls and begs for hilarity, and I'm really excited. And so what does this like main character do? She calls up her aunties, and they're gonna take care of it. And I just can't imagine all of these like Asian American aunties trying to help their niece out, and I'm just like, this, I just was laughing like reading like the back cover, and this has been on my radar because it has been like in the Goodreads Choice Awards, and I'm super excited. A lot of people were reading like romance vibes from this. I did not get that at all. I don't know if that's just because of like the cover. The cover gives romance vibes, but I think this is gonna be freaking hilarious, and I know there are sequels, so I think I'm just gonna really enjoy this. This next one is like giant fantasy. Epic scale, which again was bought on my book buying journey, and that is a memory called Empire. This is by Arcady Martin, and this won an award. I don't remember which award, but it won, Hugo. It's right on the fucking cover. Oh my god. It won the Hugo Award. So I don't really know what the Hugo Award is, but I'm assuming it's a prestigious award. So I was looking at it, caught my eye. So this is kind of like a murder mystery type thing, but like on a massive scale. So you have this woman, she arrives at this planet. She's meant to like take over for somebody else, but turns out the person who had her job before her is dead. And so now she has to figure out why exactly she died, because it doesn't look like it's an accident. She's got to figure out what happened to this person and how to save her own life. And I'm just like, that sounds interesting. Plus it's like a giant world's epic sci-fi things. I think this is going to be an interesting romp, and I'm excited. The next is nonfiction. We haven't had a lot of nonfictions in this book haul so far, but we're getting to some of them. And that is I Contain Multitudes. This is Microbes Within Us, and The Grander View of Life. This is by Ed Young. Dude, this seems just amazing. It's very sciencey, and it's, again, going to talk about microbes that are all over us. I'm assuming there's going to be some about like our gut like bacteria and like our intestines. That sounds gross, but that's really interesting. I really love stuff related to genetics and human biology, so I think this is going to be right up my alley, and I'm super excited. Moving on, we have some books that don't have audiobooks, and the first one of those is Black Panther Psychology. This is edited by Travis Langley and Alex Simmons, and this answers questions like, what is the power of trauma? What is the price of shame? And what does it take to become truly heroic? So these are all like psychological things, but it's all talked about within the lens of like Black Panther. And they have like a whole like number of series. They talk about like, you know, Star Wars, like Walking Dead, but this is the one specific for like Black Panther. And I thought that was interesting. I never heard of like this series of like books before. So if I like this one, I might try and find the other ones. Yeah, but that's this one. Next book that doesn't have an audiobook is Tempest Toss, The Spirit of Isabel Beecher Hooker. This is by Susan Campbell. If you do not know who Isabel Beecher is, she is the younger sister of Harriet Beecher Stowe and was a massive feminist and the forefront of the feminist movement in the mid-1800s. So like, oh my god, can I tell you, the Beechers were a family. There are 3 daughters, and all 3 of them were powerhouses. You've got Catherine Beecher, who was like the Martha Graham, like of her, not, oh my god, I always say Martha Graham, Martha Stewart, the Martha Stewart of her era, but also super into like female education. We have Harriet Beecher Stowe, who needs no introduction, especially here on this channel. And then we have Isabel Beecher, and she, you know, women's suffrage, all of that, super into that. And yeah, I think this will be a really interesting biography. Isabella isn't one of the Beecher sisters that I've had a whole ton of time to dive into, but I'm super excited to get to dive into her more with this book. Continuing on to a book that does have an audiobook, like most of these do, and that is Black Leopard, Red Wolf. This is by Marlon James, and basically there's this kid who disappears. People want to find this kid. I don't know why. But they hire this like bounty hunter / finder person, and who usually works alone. He teams up with like a bunch of other people to try and find this child. More questions start arising, like why is this child kidnapped? Why is this child gone for so long? X, Y, and Z. And that just, to me, seemed interesting. This is like a sci-fi fantasy, but it's going to be drawing from African history and African mythology. So I thought that that was really interesting. I love reading fantasies that are set in a non-European setting. So I am very excited to add this to like my collection of those, and also to read it, because it sounds like it's going to be really interesting. We just keep moving on. All right, the next book is The Bone Setter's Daughter. This is by Amy Tan. This follows two women. The first woman is trying to figure out a lot about her mother's like past. And her mother was like the daughter of a very, very famous bone setter in China. She's like recently like moved to San Francisco, and her daughter, who's the second person we follow, the daughter is a ghostwriter for self-help books, and she knows that something is up with her mother because her mother just like goes on and on about like weird things and like ghosts and stuff like that. In addition to all of this, Peking Man is found, which is a set of remains. I don't remember where they were found. I should know this. I want to say they're found in China. Near Beijing has the name Peking Man, but I don't know. I could be wrong about that. I should know this, and I feel super embarrassed that I don't. And this is kind of what Amy Tan does best, which is relationship between mothers and daughters, and looking at history and like the legacies of like immigration, but also like your own cultural history and like how that affects past and present and stuff like that. So that's Setter's Daughter. Moving on, Kindred, Neanderthal Love, Life, Death, and Art. This is by Rebecca Ragg-Skeggs, because you can never have too many books about Neanderthals. I have 2 already. Oh my god, I'm ridiculous. Yeah, this looks at the research. This is published for like a modern audience. This came out like last year. It was in the running for the the Goodreads BookTube prize, which is exciting. I didn't get to read it, and I don't think it got very far because I don't think a lot of people are nerds like me and would appreciate learning about the recent literature about Neanderthals. Alright, continuing on to How the Word is Passed. This is by Clint Smith. This is another book that I got at the Harry Beecher Stowe house. And this is really interesting because it looks, the subtitle is Reckoning with the History of Slavery Across America. This follows Clint Smith, who goes all over America looking about how the legacy of race is told. So he goes to many places who are telling the story right, but he also goes to places that don't, like the antebellum South. And it's very, very interesting because he tells very personal stories about people he meets all through there. I could tell you so many things. The person who like runs the Harry Beecher Stowe house was telling me all about it, and I was like, oh my god, that sounds so good. I'm gonna have to read that, and I would show you, but this is like the kind of book that I like a guest book that I got for everybody to sign their like well wishes for me for my graduation party. I would open it and show you, but like I don't want to dox anyone because there are actual people's names, information in this. But yeah, I thought it was really cute, and it felt like it was very fitting for me to use it as like my grad book. Moving on to a book that I have read, and that is Cast: The Origins of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson. I've talked about this book many times on my channel. It is very good. Isabel Wilkerson talks about race in terms of a caste system, and she compares like, you know, what it is like being, you know, African American versus being white in America, and how that is similar to the caste system in India. Sounds outrageous, but it makes a lot of sense. In India, they just, you know, define their caste. In America, it's all very subtle and not expressly spoken out loud. She also draws parallels to how African Americans were treated in Jim Crow South and the Nazis, which is a bad look, really bad look. There are a lot of damning statements in this book that talk about how the Nazis thought what the Americans were doing were too extreme, which is like sickening because you don't want to be worse than the Nazis. That's like the worst because they're the worst. Yeah, it was a really, really good book. Pick it up. It was really good. That's all I can say. Super good. The next book we're looking at is The Great Believers. This is by Rebecca Nalkai, and this is like two storylines. So the first storyline, we're dealing with the AIDS pandemic in Chicago, and these are men who are seeing their friends dying. It's really, really tragic. We're following one in particular as he's grieving all of his friends. Holy crap, I'm so glad that I did not live in the 80s because I would lose like most of my friends, and that's really, really sad. I'm really glad that like age education is going a long way, so I don't have to lose a lot of my friends. But we're also following this other story that is closer to modern day, and it's a relationship between a mother and daughter, and I don't really know exactly like how the mother is like connected to the AIDS like epidemic, because she is somehow, I think she like had a bunch of friends who died, and it's really interesting reckoning between like mother and daughter in like the past. I thought it was interesting, and this is also recommended to me by one of my professors or my creative writing class, and especially he liked how Rebecca like wrote across the difference, because Rebecca is not a gay man living in Chicago. My story that I wrote that I'm trying to get published, cross our fingers, is also me writing across difference and like the research and like what you have to do to like do that. And yeah, anyway, that's this book. Moving on to Raybearer. This is by Jordan Fueco, and this follows a young girl who is trying to be like on this council thing for, you know, like the king or like leader of this area. She has like two choices. She can either like betray the leader, like murder the leader, and she is told this by like her I guess her like boss or something like that. I'm not really sure the exact relationship. So she can do that, or she can like, you know, join this council, be like accepted, like have this really amazing bond with her fellow council members. So I'm not doing a very good description of this. I honestly got this because it was recommended to me by The Storygraph and a bunch of other different YouTube channels, because it, again, features like, it's a fantasy world based on like more African traditions and like basically non-Eurocentric traditions. And again, I'm trying to read more of those because I think they're really cool. I've heard it's really, really good, so I'm excited for it. The next book is The Taker by Amma Katsu, and I swear to God, this was recommended to me by somebody very important to me, and I do not for the life of me remember who, and I'm very embarrassed. I should be able to, because I want to say it's the teacher, but it could also not. It could be like one of the people in my sorority. I don't know, and it's just very embarrassing. But this is essentially kind of like a melodrama, because this doctor falls in love with this patient who is also like convicted of a crime. Yeah, so lots of melodrama there. But also, as we learn more about like the patient's past, we have to go all the way back to like the 19th century to learn more about this patient. So it's kind of like an epic, longer tale. And yeah, lots of love, unrequited love, and all those feelings of angst and stuff are going to go into this book, and I'm excited. I'm basically excited about anything and everything. All these books, because I bought them. Anyway, the next book that I'm going to talk about is also a book that I have started reading. Oops. And that is The House of Leaves. This is by Marcy Danielewski. This was also a book that was recommended to me by my creative writing professor, and I have started reading it. I am pretty far in, and shit's wild. So basically, the synopsis is, this is a horror book. This couple, this small family, moves into this house, and they figure out very quickly that this house is bigger on the inside, and the inside keeps changing around. It's like a labyrinth on the inside. I really like this book's use of footnotes. So you kind of have like two stories in one. You have like a story told like by the footnotes, who are people commenting on like the actual text of the story and the video that was like published. So it's really interesting because it's like you have like the base level, and then you have one person's commentary, and then you have another layer which is like the person's commentary on top of the person's commentary on top of like the other book. So there's like lots of layers to this, which makes it really, really interesting to read, and I think it still becomes really, really grippy and is interesting to read. And there's like stuff that's playing with format, and I'm really liking it. And yeah, I can't tell you how it ends because I'm only this far in, but I'm excited. It's very spooky and weird. Lots of expeditions. I love the descriptions of the expeditions in this so far. The next book is We Should All Be Feminist. This is by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Everybody talks about this text. This is a like central feminist text, and I cannot believe that I've not read it yet. I have nothing else to say about this other than it's central female text, feminist text. I've not read it, and I'm ashamed of that. But I have it now. I can read it now. So, boom. Alright, moving on. We have this book, which is Race to the Sun. This is about a young girl who can see monsters. She basically can see if like normal people are like basically where humans get their monsters or not. And she finds out that one of her like dad's business partners person is a monster. And she and her brother and a friend go off to kind of figure out like what is up with this monster. But also I think the monster like kidnaps their dad. So they have to find their dad, defeat the monster, all that stuff. And it's based a lot on Navajo traditions and like mythology. And it's also part of like the Rick Riordan like verse or Rick Riordan publishing. This is for middle grade, but I thought it would be a fun one to pick up. Plus I've read Rebecca Roanhorse's stuff before, and I've liked it. So I imagine that I'm going to like this too. All right, let's keep going. Next we have Under a Painted Sky. This is by Stacey Lee. I've read other stuff by Stacey Lee before, and I've enjoyed it. It's not like my favorite, but also it's not been good. It's been really good for like representation and telling stuff set in a historical setting that isn't normally told, which fits right up this book's alley because this book takes place in Oregon Trail times, and it follows this young Chinese girl who teams up with, I believe, an escaped slave. Yeah, that makes sense. And they go on the Oregon Trail, and they are hiding the fact that they are both women, and so they are cross-dressing as men, which I'm like, we love a like drag king moment. And they wind up meeting up with these cowboys. Stuff ensues because they're being chased down by the law, and it's pretty insane. But it sounds like it would be a really, really interesting read. And I look at history from a different lens that isn't normally seen, which I really appreciate about like Stacey Lee and what she does in general. We're almost done, I swear. Okay, so now we have Rebel of the Sands. This is by Aileen Hamilton. I don't know how to pronounce that. Hamilton. And this is a book. We follow a main character who's like homeless, alone. Is she voiceless too, or is that a different thing? Yeah. She's poor, orphaned female. And this is like in a society like there where it's like the desert, kind of like Sahara / like the Arabian desert kind of feeling to it. She wants to like set off and explore, and this is a world where there's like jinn and stuff like that. And she teams up with this dude, and they go off on a quest into the sands together. And it's really interesting because it's a lot about the main character's like empowerment over like the course of the story. That sounded interesting to me, so I got it. Keep going. I'm very excited about this next one, and that is 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. So this is the main character. She's engaged to someone she doesn't really like. She has magic that she kind of has to like repress. A la Elsa, it gets out on like her wedding day, and so she can't like wind up marrying the dude that she's supposed to marry. Her stepmom is pissed, turns her brothers into cranes, and also silences the main character. So the main character can't speak. If she speaks, her brothers die. And so she goes on this quest to find her brothers, free her brothers, and also meets possibly a love interest on the way. Who knows? But this was one that was very, very exciting to me, and I thought I would like it. I really kind of like stories like this. And yeah, she sacrifices a lot for her brothers, and I'm very excited to get to this one. Okay, moving on. This next one's a nonfiction. We haven't had a lot of nonfictions in this haul, which is kind of surprising, but this is one. And that is All That She Carried. This is a journey of Ashley's sack, a Black family's keepsake. And this is by Tiana Miles. So this is basically a history of this sack. This enslaved mother fills this sack with like stuff that her daughter might need. And she's afraid that her daughter is going to be sold. Lo and behold, her daughter is sold and only has like this sack and its a few contents in it. And later down the line, I believe the granddaughter of the daughter embroiders the family history onto the sack. And it's an examination of the discovery of that history, but also where and how the sack has traveled. It's also a family history. So this has recently been in the running for the BookTube prize. I've heard good things about it. It intrigued me from watching everybody's like videos coming out. So I figured, hey, let's pick this up. Let's give this a try. It looks interesting. So yeah, that's this one. And lastly, we're finally to the last book. And that is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. This is by Ashia Oh. Every year in this society, there is a human sacrifice. And the main character and her brother are like kind of in the running for this sacrifice. And right before her brother is going to be sacrificed, she sacrifices herself beforehand by like diving into this lake. She enters like a spirit world / like another dimension. Don't really quite know how to describe it in English words. She discovers that like the sea god is sleeping, and she goes on a journey to awaken the sea god, and she's limited by the fact that she can't stay in this place for prolonged periods of time or really long times, or bad things will happen. And she's put up against forces that want to keep the sea god sleeping for their own benefit. So that looks really interesting. Plus the cover is cool. I'm excited to read all of these books. So there you go. Here is the video. It's a long one. We had a lot of books, but I had a lot of fun filming it. Hopefully you guys had a lot of fun watching it. Let me know in the comments down below, first of all, any of the questions that you might have for a QA for me, but also which of the books that you liked. Are there any books that you read recently that you would recommend? Yeah, have a lovely day. I will see you next week. Don't know what video is coming out, but it's going to be a video. All right, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.